this episode of On Subrogation, we're going to discuss the Federal Tort Claims Act. If you're looking for information on filing claims against state and local governments, see the episode specifically covering that topic. I'm Jason Sullivan, and the Federal Tort Claims Act was the statute that changed how the government could be found liable in the United States. The federal government before the act could not be found liable for the acts of its employees. After the act, the government could be held liable just the same as any other entity or person in the United States for their negligent acts. So, what do you do when you're dealing with the government? And the first is, how often are you really dealing with the federal government? And if you think about it, we have all the branches of the military, the Army, the Navy. We have a bunch of different agencies such as the Department of Homeland Security or the United States Department of Agriculture. And finally, the United States Postal Service. All of these agencies and branches do have employees that are operating vehicles on the roadways in their course and scope of employment with the federal government. Collisions will happen, and you may find yourself having a claim where the at-fault party was an employee of the federal government. So, under the Federal Tort Claims Act, you have to follow the statute. And the first thing is, you have a 2-year period in which to provide the government with notice of the claim. Now, notice is provided on Standard Form 95, and if you've ever filed a claim, you're very familiar with this. It's the same form, standard form, and it has all of the information that you might suspect you would need, such as what agency is involved, how did the loss happen, where did the loss happen, what is the theory of the loss, and the amount of damages. Now, when you submit this form, you have to send it to the correct agency. I usually also recommend including the supporting documents, such as an estimate of the loss, photos of the damage, and proof that the claim was paid. It used to be that you could also submit an authorization to pursue your insured's deductible, a form signed by your insured that says you, the insurance company, have the right to make the claim for their deductible. However, there is a federal statute, the Anti-Assignment Statute, that bars an assignment of a claim against the United States government. More and more agencies we are seeing are using that Anti-Assignment Statute to bar or reject claims that include an insured's deductible. If you want to include the insured's deductible, really the best way to do it is either to refund that deductible to the insured or to go ahead and waive that at the outset during the claims process. In that case, then there's no out-of-pocket claim, no assignment, and you can pursue the full damages from the loss. So, after you provide the notice of claim through the Standard Form 95, what happens next? And really, the important thing to know is there is another statute of limitations. The default statute of limitations is you have 6 years from the date of loss to file a lawsuit. And that seems like a long time. However, if the government rejects your claim, you only have 6 months from the date of rejection. So let's walk through the scenarios. You send in the Standard Form 95. The government rejects your claim. From the date that they send out the rejection, you only have 6 months to file the claim. Now, that suit will be filed in the federal courts, and that is the only jurisdiction that has the right to hear any claims against the federal government once there's a suit filed. Now, if the government doesn't respond, what happens then? So you have the right to treat non-response of 6 months as a rejection. So if you send in the Standard Form 95 and you don't receive a response, now you have an option. You can treat that silence as a rejection and go ahead and file a suit. You've met the requirement, the prerequisite, in order to file the suit in the federal court. Or you can wait, and you can wait till closer towards that 6-year period if you would like. Now, what would be the reason you might want to wait that long? And the most common scenario I see is when you're an insurance carrier and you pay out on a property damage loss. Unfortunately, your insured also had a bodily injury claim, so they're making their own claim to the federal government. Unlike a lot of private insurance companies that will treat the two separately, they'll have one adjuster handle the property damage, they'll have another handle the bodily injury, they'll make a liability determination between the two, and then once they do that, each will handle the damages separately and on a separate time frame. My experience is the federal government does not do that. They will not split the claim. So if you have a property damage claim, you submit your Standard Form 95 and you're not getting a response, but you know your insured has a pending bodily injury claim with the federal government, that's likely the reason why. You're probably not going to hear from anybody on your property damage claim until that bodily injury claim is also resolved. Now, when you do have a rejection or you are going to treat non-response as a rejection, then your option is to file suit. Suit will always be filed in the federal courts, as I said, because those are the only courts with jurisdiction to hear these claims. With the federal court system, there's a different set of rules regarding the rules of evidence, civil procedure, and the certain notice requirements. So if you're not familiar with those and have only practiced in state court, you can't file in state court because it's going to be removed, and you need to be prepared to move your case forward in the federal court under the federal court rules. So the important thing to remember when you have a federal tort claim is you have 2 years to submit the standard Form 95. Then, only 6 months from a rejection. Whether it be a formal rejection, or if you don't receive a response, then you can avail yourself and treat that as a rejection. But you want to make sure that you're filing suit in the right jurisdiction, which will be federal court, within a timely manner to make sure that your claim is not lost. For On Subrogation, I'm Jason Sullivan, and this has been the Federal Tort Claims Act. That's the long and short of it.